Good afternoon, everyone. This is Allison Watts with Capital Business Solutions. We're going to give 2 or 3 minutes to any latecomers, and then we'll get started.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our eFocus series for Razor's Edge. If this is the first time you're joining one of our eFocus series on behalf of Capital Business Solutions, thank you for joining. We provide these on a periodic basis, and you can go to our website at www.capitalbusiness.net for upcoming opportunities under the events section. We will be recording today's eFocus. Each of the attendees will get an email with the recording link if you wish to view it at a later time. Just some quick introductions. My name is Peter Saul. I oversee the consulting team here at Capital Business Solutions, and I'm going to be serving as the moderator today. I also have Allison Watts, who is our fundraising practice manager and senior consultant. Allison will be taking us through the content today. As Allison is presenting, you may type questions into the questions area. We are going to hold question answers to the end of the seminar today, but we will cover the questions. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Allison to get started. Thanks again for joining.
Thank you, Peter, and thanks again to everyone. Welcome. So today we were going to talk about managing regular donors, and regular donors are those prospects and donors who you want to cultivate to give on a regular basis, so weekly, monthly, semi-monthly, quarterly basis, with the idea that that will enable maybe a larger gift over time or make it easier for donors to say yes to giving to your organization and to your mission. So again, regular donors give routinely. They might give through a check and just notify you that they are willing to give on a regular basis, but it will then be up to them to make good on that promise and send you a check through the mail on a regular basis. What we're going to talk about mostly today is the recurring or regular gifts that are up to you to process. So the donor turns over the information necessary, and then according to the schedule that you have agreed upon, the organization commits or transacts those gifts. So credit card or regular donations by credit card or direct debit can be processed sort of the old-fashioned way. Maybe you have another means for processing credit cards for in-person events, and you use that to transact these gifts the same. Or maybe you have a secure online portal or the EFT module within Razor's Edge, which allows you to transact the gifts from within the Razor's Edge or in a batch or in a more direct way than using an external tool. And then just a quick definition of the distinction between pledges and recurring gifts. A pledge is a promise that the donor makes to give a total amount. So a pledge has an end amount that the donor intends to get to. and the schedule that the donor will pay over is determined, is pre-agreed upon by the both of you, and it has a fixed end date. A recurring gift has a set transaction amount that will be withdrawn on a regular basis. So whereas a pledge might have a $1,000 total gift amount that will be paid in quarterly installments over 1 year and end on December 31st, 2016, a recurring gift might be set up to take $25 from the donor's bank account or from the donor's credit card every other week until the donor decides to stop. So you don't know ultimately what the total gift amount is going to be with a recurring gift. And there is no end date until the gift is actually terminated, until the donor says, I'm not going to do this anymore. So you would use a pledge, as I said, when you have a total amount and a fixed end date. Some examples of this are a pledge that is made and fulfilled in the same year and or for the annual fund. A pledge that is made and then paid over many years, 5 years, 10 years, which is common for capital campaigns. Maybe a commitment of a sponsorship for an event. So you're soliciting vendors or businesses to support an event that happens in January, but you're going to start now to solicit those sponsorships. And then a payroll deduction could be a pledge when it fulfills these other requirements, that it has a total amount and an end date. So when you set up a pledge in Razor's Edge, the only difference between it and other gifts is to change the gift type from cash to pledge. And that enables you to create a schedule for the gift. So I have created a schedule that is semi-monthly, that's every other week or every 2 weeks. And this might be common for a payroll deduction kind of setup. This gift is for $500 in total amount, and then it's going to be made in over 1 year, so every other week for 1 year, which calculates to $20.83. So I didn't have to do that math. The Razor's Edge did it for me, which is always nice. But within the schedule, you can set the term, the frequency, the start date, and of course the installment amounts and dates. And I encourage everyone to use the schedule because even if it's just a one-time pledge and a one-time payment of the full amount of the pledge, having a schedule will enable you to remind the donor of when the installments are coming due and allow you to do cash flow reports so that you can have an expectancy report that lets you know when certain payments can come in, will come in, or expected to come in. And it also allows you to find missed payments and possibly go back to the donor, find out what happened, reschedule the pledge, or recoup those missed payments. So if you have the EFT module and you want to be able to process the transactions from within Razor's Edge, then you would enter the credit card details in the pay method section of the gift. The credit card number is always encrypted. The only time you can see the number is when you're actually keying it in. Once you save the gift, the number is masked except for the last 4 digits rather, and it goes into a vault that is encrypted and can be accessed only when when the system, only by the system when the transactions are actually being committed. So the Razor's Edge is fully PCI compliant, and the donor can give you that information with full confidence and security that it will be protected. Also, you can set security settings by user to limit who can access this information on a gift or even view the last four numbers, the 4 digits, and other credit card information. So you can make it more secure than it is by default, but by default it is fully protective of your donor's information. So again, those are pledges, and recurring gifts differ in that they have no end date and they have no total amount. This is common for payroll deductions that begin when an employee comes on board and end when the employee leaves the company or when the employee decides to no longer give. Direct debit transactions are good for recurring gifts, and also for donors who just want to establish their commitment to your organization and then not have to worry about it ever again. They will be confident that their support keeps going without them having to think about it every month or every year. But some things to think about, considerations to have when you are deciding whether this gift is more appropriate as a recurring gift or as a pledge. Does it go into a dated fund or appeal? In other words, would the fund need to change annually, or some detail on the gift need to change annually? Also, how internally do you want to be able to look at recurring gift commitments or recurring gift expectations? So again, recurring gifts don't have an expected end amount, and the donor is not obligated to fulfill a total amount. They can stop at any time. So unlike a pledge, there is no obligation or no agreement to get up to a certain amount. So if you are accustomed to looking at, for example, fiscal year, grand total raised kinds of reports, you'll need to think about recurring gifts a little bit differently, because whereas a pledge would factor into that grand total of dollars raised for the year because that commitment has been made by the donor, the recurring gift does not. It is only a cash in hand kind of thing. So keep those two things in mind as you are working with recurring gifts. But setting up the recurring gift is very similar to the pledge, except that the gift amount, again, is just the transaction amount. It's not the total amount. You don't know the total amount. So the gift amount that goes in the amount field is always going to be the by week or by month amount. And then the schedule is almost exactly the same as the pledge, but again, there is no ending date. It's always going to be blank. There are also fields for active, excuse me, for the status of the recurring gift, active, on hold, I believe, and then terminated. So of course, we're just beginning this gift. It is still active. So the gifts have been entered. You've set a schedule, and the schedule has begun. It's time to start recording payments against these pledges and recurring gifts. So it's easy to pay either from a constituent record. Open the record, go to the Gifts tab, click on New Gift, and you'll see a dialog box that reminds you that there is an outstanding pledge or recurring gift. So you answer yes, and then you see a dialog box similar to the one at the bottom of the screen with the installment or the transaction that is next coming up. So there are screenshots here for recurring gifts, but for pledges it looks nearly exactly the same. Just substitute the word pledge. So then, of course, save and close, and the gift is in Razor's Edge. The payment of the recurring gift or pledge is committed to Razor's Edge. Depending on how many recurring gifts and recurring pledges or regular donor pledges you have, you may want to enter the payments through a batch. This is very common and very useful for payroll deductions, especially if you're a larger organization or if you have a very robust regular donors program, because there will be a lot of gifts hopefully coming in every period, every 2 weeks or every month or every quarter, whatever the case may be. And going back to each of those regular donor constituent records can be time-consuming, and you would need to query or somehow locate the payments that were due for that period. So with the batch, all of that is taken care of for you. So you would create a new batch, a new gift batch, similar, the same. I'm going to assume that, we're not going to go through just regular batch entry. So everything is the same as regular batch entry, except when you create a brand new gift batch, you tick the box for batch is recurring in the yellow oval there. That will allow you to commit the batch multiple times. So as many times as you need to for the pace and schedule and frequency of your regular donors. Then as you go to the data entry screen for gift entry, you can go through and manually enter the constituents who have recurring gifts or pledges by searching for the record. You'll see the pop-up box, the dialog box for the open pledge or recurring gift, and answer yes, and then the details will go into the row for that constituent. Or you can go to the Tools toolbar, the Tools menu of the toolbar, and choose Automatically Generate Transactions/Payments, which will search your entire database and find records, constituents that have open gifts with payments or transactions due since the last time that you generated transactions. And then that will populate your batch with all of the rows of all of the constituents who are eligible for transactions or payments. Sorry. So once you have populated the batch, each period, each time of the frequency that you would need to commit the transactions or process the transactions, you can come back to this same batch. So you automatically load, or once you've manually entered all the rows for all of the recurring gifts or pledges, then you commit the batch. And then from period to period, you don't have to change any information except what has changed since the last period. For example, if an employee leaves from a payroll deduction program, then you would just delete that row from the batch. Or maybe someone has increased their gift amount and you would just change that gift amount in the batch. Always, each period that you would commit the batch or transact the batch, you would need to update the gift dates. So you would change the gift date to the next 2 weeks or the next month or the next quarter and change the post date at the same time. So helpfully, you can do that globally. Click on the batch, go to Tools, and choose Global Change Date. And then you can select the date that you want to update. So today's date, or the 1st or the 15th, or whatever the case may be, whatever is appropriate. Change now, and then all the way down the column for that date, the date will be changed. And then you repeat the same thing for the post date, because you want the gift date and the post date to match within the batch. And then if you're transacting directly from Razor's Edge, you would use that same menu, the Tools menu in the toolbar, and create the EFT transmission files, which actually sends the data through your merchant services account and takes the money from the bank accounts and puts it in your account. So the transactions actually hit the donor's credit cards when you choose Create EFT Transmissions files. From there, you would commit the batch as usual. So we set up a regular donors program so that things work like clockwork. Not only does the donor not have to think about it, but you think about it less. There's less work around getting the same amount of dollars in the door, which is what we all want. However, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Sometimes our regular donors become irregular. And there are ways to, of course, deal with those things, and some ways to head them off at the pass before they actually happen. Common occurrences are for the donor to change their mind or to increase their gift or decrease, stop or start. Sometimes they just want to revise the schedule. They want to go from monthly to quarterly, or maybe skip a few payments and resume at a later date. Sometimes payments get skipped and you didn't realize it until it had happened. So ways to A, find them, and B, catch them up. And of course, declined or changed or expired financial data. And then that the donor just initiates the stop. So to reschedule a pledge, for example, the donor has had a change of circumstance or just wants to postpone or maybe speed up payments, you would just go to the original gift, the original pledge, open it, and then click on the Installments tab, where you can look at the schedule and reschedule by clicking on the Reschedule button. Very straightforward. If there are any payments that have been made, you're only rescheduling the remainder. And then you can choose the same frequency and a new start date, or you can change the frequency, or you can change the amounts. Really anything that the donor wishes, you can accommodate through the Reschedule tool. If the donor has decided to not complete the pledge, or if some time has passed and you've made lots of good faith efforts to communicate with the donor and they just aren't responsive, then you can choose to write the gift off. So again, you go to the original gift, the original pledge, open it, and in the toolbar of the gift, go to the gift menu and choose Write Off. You'll see this dialog box, and it will show you the balance that hasn't been paid. It might be partial or it might be the entire thing. And you can choose the part to write off. In the amount field, click Auto Distribute, and the total amount will be written off. And save and close, and you will no longer see a balance on that pledge. The donor would no longer be reminded that there's a pledge due, and that gift or process would be ended. If you have written off a pledge and it was part of the EFT module, when you automatically generate transactions from that batch, this gift would no longer be included. One note about the post date on write-offs: if you are tied to the general ledger, if your Razor's Edge is integrated with Financial Edge, you want to be mindful about that post date and communicate with the finance team about how they want to see that, or what they want to do with that date or that write-off, particularly if the write-off or the original pledge was in a different fiscal period. So if the month that the pledge was made or the year that the pledge was made has been closed, then there may be considerations for writing off that pledge or ramifications for the finance team that you want to discuss with them. Also, for your purposes in development, if you're writing off a gift from a prior fiscal year, you would probably want to make, or just be aware that the gift date, the write-off date, and the post date will affect your bottom line total dollars raised reports. So you'll sort of take the hit for write-offs in the year in which the write-off date occurs. So lots of times you do some cleanup, you had maybe dozens or even hundreds of gifts that you wrote off, and lo and behold, the next time you do a total dollars raised kind of report, it's tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars less than it should be, and it's because those write-offs are showing in the current period when the pledges were actually made in a prior fiscal period. So just be aware of those dates and adjust them to suit your needs. So you can simply reschedule a pledge. You can write it off if it's done. And for a recurring gift, you can create an amendment. So the process is similar. Go to the constituent, open the recurring gift template. This is the original one where you designated what the period was and what the amount per period would be. Then go to the amendment tab and choose new, and you'll see this dialog box. So my original gift, that was $20.83 per 2 weeks. I have changed to be $32 per period, and I also changed the fund from Fund 3 to Fund 102. And on the right-hand side, you see what all of the previous details were for the amendment, and then what the current details are shows on the left-hand side. Let's say that payment has been missed for a recurring gift, or the donor has asked that they skip a couple of months and then resume. On the recurring gift, you have the Transactions tab, and in the bottom right-hand corner, you see Rollback Transactions and Skip Next Transaction. So these two tools help you accommodate the donor and then also help you internally if payments were missed because of declined cards or expired cards, then you can catch the recurring gift back up again. Now the Rollback Transactions button or command takes you back to the start date that you choose, or the start date that is noted. So it does what it says. It rolls back, goes backward in time, and picks up at a certain date. The skip transaction skips the oldest missed transaction if there's several. So if there's 3 months, it's going to go back to July and skip that one, and then show that the next date due is August. So if there are multiple transactions that have been missed, you may click the Skip Next Transactions multiple times until the date that shows is current. Then to find, so that's all well and good, but unless the donor contacts you, how do you know that some payments have been missed? Well, there are 2 reports that will help with this, and they both are under the Pledge and Recurring Gift Reports section. Past due report is great for pledges, and the Recurring Gift Missed Payments report shows you missed recurring gifts. So the screenshots you're looking at now are for the pledges, and the past due report I have chosen to look for gifts that were made, so the original pledge date was after the last day of the last fiscal year. So I'm looking at pledges made within this current fiscal year. But at the same time, they are past due as of today's date. And then the other screenshot shows you the detail. It will list the donors who are past due. You'll see what type of pledge they have. So Pledge S1 is a single installment. Pledge A4 is an annual installment over 4 years, and so on. So you'll get used to those abbreviations that in the type column. Then it shows you the outstanding gift amount and how many days past due each installment, or where in the days past due each installment falls. You also get a total, which will give you a good idea of what you could recoup if only you could recoup those past due payments, which is easier than going after new gifts, or at least in some cases. And then the recurring gift missed payment is very similar. You just choose, but in this case you don't need to look for a start date. Just enter payments missed as of. And you can also choose if you want to look only for one missed payment or multiple missed payments. Now there's a filter on the second tab of this report, the filters tab, to select from the gift statuses. And since you probably don't care if installments or transactions have been missed from held or terminated types of recurring gifts, we're only looking for active ones. And then again, you get the constituent name of the person whose installment or transaction has been missed, what the last payment date was. I bet she's missed more than 2 if the last payment date was 2003. This is just sample data, sample database information, so that's why that date is so old. But it shows you the last payment date and amount, and then how many payments have been missed. Total payments missed, just 1, and then total amount from those missed payments is 10. And this particular report only showed 1 constituent, but for however many constituents there are, you would see again the total amount for all the missed recurring gifts, and maybe an easy revenue stream to just go back and recoup those missed payments, or certainly restart them again. And you can also use this idea of looking for missed payments, or even preempting the need to look for missed payments by keeping on top of expiration dates. So probably the most common reason for missing transactions is that the expiration date has passed. It's a simple phone call to the donor to get the new expiration date, update the constituent record or the gift record, and then those transactions continue seamlessly. So here's a sample query with criteria that will help you find those individuals or those transactions that are due to expire. So it's a gift query instead of a constituent query. It's a gift query, and it looks at the expiration date or expires on field, which was under gift information. So I chose October 1. We're in September now. So I'm going to look at either credit card expiration dates that have already expired or are set to expire next month. So the first time you run a query like this, you might find a lot of results. And then as you update the information and can run this monthly, then you would only see the credit cards that are expiring in the coming month and get sort of up to date with that. So in addition to the expires on criteria, I've added and, so at the same time as the expiring date, the gift status, which is the recurring gifts, has to be active. It's not already terminated or on hold. Or if it's a pledge, then the pledge balance is greater than 0. So it's not a pledge that's already been paid or written off or somehow in another way closed. So this is active gifts that have an expiration, credit card expiration of the coming month. And then you might output the donor's name and phone number and just go through and notify them that their credit card is due to expire, and would they like for you to update that information? It's also another opportunity just to make a touch with the donor in the whole cultivation cycle. If the gift has come to an end, if the employee, for example, doing payroll deduction has left or changed their mind, or if any donor decides to end the transaction, maybe they want to start a different recurring gift, then you open the initial gift, again, the template where you first determine the schedule and the amount per period that was to be taken out. Go to the schedule and enter the end date, and then go back to the main tab for the gift and change the status to terminated. And then you can add the date also as the status date of that day. That will end that gift, and again, it won't be brought into new batches that are automatically generated. If you have a manually created batch that you commit, a recurring batch that you commit, and the transactions don't come automatically out of Razor's Edge, then you'll want to manually delete the row for the terminated recurring gift to ensure that it doesn't cause an exception or mistakenly add another transaction to the donor's Razor's Edge record. So that's the end of my formal presentation, taking you through a little bit of how to enter gifts when you first receive them from regular donors, how to manage them on a month-to-month or week-to-week basis, depending on the period of the frequency of the transactions, what to do for some of the exceptions or when there are changes to those transactions or schedules, and a little bit of reporting on how to keep on top of the entire process and to reassure your donor that that you're being good stewards of their money and providing good service to them as donors.
Great. Thank you very much, Allison. This is Peter again. We're going to open things up to for questions. I'm going to ask Allison to stick around a little bit, and we'll take any questions that you may have. If you go ahead and then type those into the question section of your GoToWebinar. I don't see any questions coming in yet, so we'll keep an eye on them here. Question came in, will you send a copy of the webinar? Absolutely. Each attendee will get a link with a recorded copy of the webinar that you can go back through at a later time. Okay, as we're waiting for questions to come in, I'll just mention if you're an organization that's in a position that you feel like Capital Business Solutions can help you, by all means, please contact us. There's some contact information up on the screen right there. and we'll see how we can help you. Okay, well, I'd like to thank our presenter, Allison Watts, for all the content today, and I would like to thank everyone who joined us today. Again, we have these eFocus webinars on a periodic basis. Go to capitalbusiness.net under the events section, and you can see the upcoming webinars. We're going to close out today's webinar, and thanks again all for joining.